In this video, I am talking to you about the impact of US religious policies on African missions, even as President Donald Trump have just been inaugurated. The intersection of US religious policies and African missions is a dynamic relationship shaped by shared faith values, international diplomacy, and socio-political priorities. Under President Donald Trump, significant policy shifts influenced missionary work and religious activities in African countries, with both opportunities and challenges emerging for religious organizations operating within the region. Number one is commitment to religious freedom. One of the hallmarks of the Trump administration was its commitment to religious freedom. This policy resonated strongly in Africa, where religious persecution, particularly against Christians, has been a pressing issue. Initiatives like the Ministerial to Advance Religious Freedom, organized by the U.S. State Department or the U.S. Department of State, brought global attention to religious oppression in regions such as northern Nigeria, where extremist groups targeted Christian communities. The administration's emphasis on defending Christianity provided moral and financial support to African missions. Churches and missionary organizations in Africa benefited from increased advocacy and direct aid aimed at protecting religious groups under threat. For instance, the U.S. International Religious Freedom Act was reinforced under Trump, directing funds to religious organizations combating persecution in Africa. The Global Gag Rule is number two. The Global Gag Rule and its implications. The reinstatement and expansion of the Mexico City policy, also known as the Global Gag Rule, had profound implications for African missions. This policy prohibits U.S. funding for organizations that perform or promote abortion services, even with non-U.S. funds. Positive impact for pro-life missions. African Christian missions that align with pro-life values welcomed this policy, viewing it as a reinforcement of family values. Organizations opposing abortion found increased opportunities to partner with US-based religious groups for funding and advocacy. Challenges for broader healthcare services. Conversely, this policy disrupted the operations of some NGOs that integrated reproductive health services with missionary outreach. Reduced funding strained healthcare services, including HIV prevention and maternal care, often provided by faith-based organizations in African nations like Kenya, Zimbabwe, and Uganda. The third thing here is shifts in international partnerships. The Trump administration prioritized bilateral agreements over multilateral arrangements, impacting international partnerships for African missions. This shift allowed direct collaborations between US faith-based organizations and African missions, bypassing bureaucratic hurdles. Increased direct funding. Churches and ministries in Africa benefited from direct financial support for projects such as building schools, hospitals, and seminaries. These partnerships fostered a sense of autonomy and stronger accountability. Another thing here is reduction in multilateral aid. However, the reduced emphasis on multilateral institutions like the United Nations curtailed funding streams that previously supported interfaith and multi-organizational projects. Number four is support for evangelical missions. The Trump administration's alignment with evangelical values bolstered missionary work, focusing on evangelism, discipleship, and humanitarian aid. High-profile evangelical leaders in the US actively supported African missions through donations training programs, and advocacy. Prominent projects. Faith-based organizations like Samaritan's Purse expanded their footprint in Africa, addressing crises such as famine, natural disaster, and disease outbreaks. Educational outreach. U.S. religious policies promoted faith-based educational programs supporting the establishment of Bible colleges and training centers in countries like Nigeria, Ghana, and Ethiopia. Challenges in navigating local content is number 5, local context. Despite the benefits, US religious policies under Trump occasionally clash with local realities in Africa. Critics argued that prioritizing specific religious groups could exacerbate tensions in multi-religious societies. In countries like Sudan and Nigeria, where religious conflicts are deeply rooted, the perceived favoritism towards Christian missions sometimes heightened interfaith discord. Additionally, African missions reliant on US funding faced uncertainty due to abrupt policy changes, reduced funding for broader developmental programs, including those linked to religious organizations, pose challenges to long-term sustainability. The impact of US religious policies under President Trump on African missions was multifaceted. While the emphasis on religious freedom and family values resonated positively with many African Christian leaders, policies like the Global Gag Rule presented mixed outcomes. The focus on direct partnerships and evangelical missions strengthened ties between US and African faith communities, fostering growth in missionary work. However, navigating the complex socio-political landscape of Africa required balancing these policies with sensitivity to local context. As African missions continue to evolve, their relationship with US religious policies remains a vital component of their global outreach and impact. So, these are some of the issues that we have here. So, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe to this 10 minutes with God YouTube channel, like this video, share the link of this video with your family and friends, and then we are going to see in the next one. Please, the next video from this channel is what you need to watch now, and you are going to be glad you did. I am going to see you in the next one. Bye bye.